Hello, everyone. In my recent recordings, people were saying that they couldn't hear me, which is really odd because I check the volume and everything before I hit the record button. And then to further that, I am checking the recordings themselves before I post them to YouTube. I check them not only to make sure that it's possible to hear me, but also to check for timestamps. One of the requests that people made many, many years ago was for me to make timestamps of each subject that I'm covering so that they can skip between the video easier. I've been doing that. So I assure you, I'm checking everything. If there's something wrong, then please check yourself first before going in the comments. Don't get me wrong, I'm happy to see comments and I'm happy to respond, but at the end of the day, I can only do so much. With that out of the way, let's go ahead and talk about the games that I'm keeping an eye on. So the first one I want to talk about is Comanche. This is because I think that I should give a warning about this game. Comanche is made by THQ Nordic. As most probably remember, THQ is behind games such as Titan Quest, Company of Heroes, and others. So they're a very successful company as far as I'm concerned. What they have here is something very different. It's a helicopter PvP game that is based on near real flight simulation, meaning you have to do things like nose down the helicopter to go faster and things like that. And that's the part I'm going to give a warning on. This game is too near realistic with the simulation, so I doubt that there's going to be very many people that either can do it or want to put up with it. If this was more of an arcade-ish kind of style, then I could maybe see this being as something that more people would be playing. However, in its current state, there's only going to be a handful of people that are really going to be able to play it. To make it more problematic, in the current state of the game, now keep in mind it's early access, but in the current state, I've tried changing around the keybinds, I've changed options and things, but it doesn't seem like that there's a middle ground with this game. It's either too sensitive or too stiff. There's no in between. So I can't play the game. I've tried everything in the book, but it's just not something that is really working for me right now. I've played flight simulators before, and this is a completely different matter. But yeah, so I'll keep an eye on it just to see if people make a competitive game out of it, but that's really the extent of my watch on it. Moving on, Empire of Sin. This is a game I'm really, really excited to see because it's an XCOM clone. I like XCOM-like games. I thought XCOM Enemy Unknown and Phantom Doctrine were some of the best games that I have played. I didn't really like XCOM 2 because they did a lot of things like hacking and crap, but those two games I really, really liked. I thought Enemy Unknown was great, and I thought Phantom Doctrine was great. I still speak highly of Phantom Doctrine, even to this day. It's a game that most people haven't played, and I think people should. But anyways, Empire Sin is, as you can see on the website, Criminal Empire 1920s Chicago. What this means is that you are essentially the boss and you run rackets. This can include gambling, smuggling, and things like that. That's the main goal here, is that, and just dealing with the environment as is. You're going to have rivals and other things as you build your empire, so you just deal with it. One other cool thing that I've noticed from all of the videos I've watched about this is that the characters you recruit or hire have interactions with you. So if you make a decision they don't like, then they view you differently. That's not something that you will find in XCOM Enemy Unknown to a certain degree. Phantom Doctrine, yes, but not nearly to the level that this game is going. So I'm really excited to see what happens with this game. Okay, next one. Subnautica Below Zero. I really enjoyed the first Subnautica. I spent way too many hours on that game. Then to add to that, I did help with some wiki articles and some of the unofficial guides. I liked it that much. I was more than willing to sit down and play and help others get through their playthroughs. So, Below Zero should be good, I would think. Right now it's in early access, so it's while you could play it, it's not complete. See, the thing of it is that from what I've been told, the blueprints are all in the game, but the story isn't. At some point, they decided to change the story, and so right now, apparently, that's what's going on, is that they're changing the story, redoing things. So I'm gonna wait until they're complete before I try getting to Below Zero. But I am interested to see what happens. Next is a game that probably isn't on the radar for most people, but it's the Black Masses. It was only recently announced, as far as I know. It's a medieval zombie game, so yeah, another zombie game. But depending on how things go, I think it could be a good game to play. It does have multiplayer from what I've seen on videos, so that means you do get to play with your friends. So that's cool. The reviews have been mostly positive, which you almost never see on a release. Anytime a game goes into early access, you'll normally find a negative review of some kind, but not this time. This is positive of 111. So that's another good sign here, in addition to the other stuff. Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines 2. So I have very mixed feelings on this, but I will keep an eye on it just to see if maybe they do things differently. In my personal opinion, I felt that Bloodlines 1 was rushed, and it wasn't really that great. I don't think that they will be able to top Redemption anytime soon. I think that when it comes to the Vampire Masquerade games, Redemption wins at that one. It was a very in-depth story, it had a good quest line, and I overall enjoyed that game a lot. I did multiple playthroughs, trying different builds with Kristoff. So yeah, we'll see what happens with this one, to see if they can redeem themselves, but right now I'm very skeptical of the whole thing. The one thing that I will give them props for is community response. I know when I joined the Discord, at some point people were asking about their computers and whether or not they should upgrade. Fortunately for those people, I do know computers very well. I've been building them for 19 years. So, I jumped in there and talked to them about it, and kind of gave them some ideas. But at the end of the day, I did talk to one of the, I guess, staff members. I'm not really entirely sure what their title is, but whoever it was somebody higher up in the Discord, and they were very responsive to me. They said, let's just wait until the game comes out and we can discuss about, you doing more to help the community with their computers. I was like, cool. That level of interaction is not something you normally see. The only time that you ever really see interactions with big games on staff end is usually between a streamer or a company, but not something as minor as that. Because realistically, if you go to other companies, like Infinity War or the others, they consider that to be minor talk. They don't try to include small talk. At least that's been my experience, but teach their own. Anyways, moving on. Obviously, I'm keeping an eye on Wasteland 3. This game has been around for a while, well, at least the other games. I think it's an interesting approach to an RPG, because a lot of RPGs these days try to be first person. You almost hardly run into third person ones, so I'm interested to see what happens with Wasteland 3. Of course, I'm also keeping an eye on Desperados, because it's almost identical to Wasteland. It's just set in a different time frame. So I'm going to keep an eye on that as best I can and just see what happens. But yeah, this time that's really all I'm keeping an eye on. For at least now, because there's a lot of things that are either in discussion and there's no solid details on it. Therefore, I can't keep an eye on it. Example, Witcher 4 recently was revealed. Well, at least the fact that they've been working on it. So that right there is a bit of a confusion because when the devs set out to make Witcher 3, they said this would be the last Witcher. So I think Witcher 4 is going to be Ciri's story. That would make the most sense because the devs made it clear in their interviews with Witcher 3 that they weren't really looking to do any more Geralt. So it has to be a story about Ciri, is my guess. If it's not a story about Ciri, then I'm going to guess it's a story about Yen or Triss. That would be my next best guesses. But Ciri seems the most likely of those options because she's popped up in Witcher 3, but she didn't really have like her own game. So that would make complete sense for Ciri to have her own game. Plus, if they didn't do Ciri, it would be going back on what they said in the interviews. That right there, the reason I'm thinking that is so unlikely is because CD Projekt Red has just been an overall honest company. When they say they do something, they do it. You know, when the whole microtransaction questions came down for Cyberpunk, they said they weren't doing it. And sure enough, they aren't. And see, that's the great thing about CD Projekt Red is that they've forged a reputation of they stick to what they're doing. It's not like, what's a good example? Call of Duty, which has a long history of microtransaction greed. You know, when the most recent Call of Duty came out, people were saying it's just going to be the same as prior, and they said it wasn't going to be. They weren't going to do those levels of microtransaction. Sure enough, they didn't, but you can't expect people to believe a company who has that kind of history, right? So CD Projekt Red has a very good history of sticking to what they're saying they're going to do. But that's all I have to say. Thanks for listening.